So most people's shooting workouts is just spot shots, and then they hop right into the game and they wonder why they can't shoot. They wonder why they get nervous when somebody's actually closing out, playing defense, and they honestly just shit their pants when they get into a game. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 5 levels of shooting and how you guys can use them to actually become a better shooter and train the right way. So the first level is on-air shooting. This is the one that all of you guys are doing. You spend 90% of your time doing it, which I would say it's definitely beneficial to some degree when you guys can use it correctly. But again, most of you guys are doing it the wrong way and you're using it way too much. So I would scale this from maybe 90 to 100% of your shooting to maybe 25%. If you're by yourself, obviously you're going to use on-air shooting, but when you do it, you need to constantly be challenging yourself. Just sitting at the same spot, repping out the same exact shot at the same spot, at the same speed isn't too beneficial because there is no challenge. And the other thing, if you want your training to transfer, it needs to contain game elements like defense, like pressure, like variability, and shooting spot shots contains none of that. So again, if you're going to do it, we constantly want to be challenging ourselves. Don't shoot at the same spot twice in a row. Add variability, mix up your skills where you're doing maybe one footwork, then you're getting into a different footwork, changing the spot, changing the speed, right? You're not always shooting at the same exact speed in the game, but in training, most of you guys just do exactly the same tempo, same shot every single time. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Again, if you guys are shooting 90 to 100% of your shooting work doing this, scale it down to maybe 25%, and you guys can use the rest of these, and again, constantly be challenging yourself. The next one is contested shooting. So this is what you guys can use when you're with a partner. If you have a partner, the last thing you should be doing is spot shots or shooting on air, because you can do that when you're by yourself. So when you have a partner, you want to start to use some of these things to create a more game realistic environment. So contested shooting is great because it's going to add a little bit of pressure. You're going to be forced to shoot at different speeds. Maybe they're a little slower on the closeout, so you have a little more time. Maybe they're a little faster, so you got to be a little quicker. Maybe their contest is a little longer, so you have to get your shot up a little bit higher, right? You're going to have a little bit of variability here. You're going to have a little bit of pressure, which again is just going to make it more realistic and again transfer to a higher degree. So when you do have a partner, doing things like pass into closeouts, changing up the spots is a great way to just make your training a little bit more beneficial. Now the downside to this is there's no decision. You'll never shoot a shot in a game where you're not having to decide, should you shoot it or should you drive it, or should you get to the rim or should you pass, right? You have to make a decision. So the third layer is making a decision to shoot or to not shoot. So again, contested shooting, you know you're going to shoot every time, which isn't really realistic because again, in the game, you have to make those decisions. So the third layer is just deciding, do I shoot here? Maybe I shot fake, put the ball on the floor and then get to a pull-up. So this can be things like pass, close out. You're either going to get a catch and shoot, or you're going to put it on the floor, try to get a one dribble. So this is just one-on-one variations, jump shots only, where you know you're shooting, but you don't know exactly when you're shooting or how you're shooting. You might have to create your shot. You might have to shot fake jab. Again, it's just going to make it a little bit more realistic. But again, at the end of the day, it's not fully realistic because again, there's so many other components in a game that you guys have to kind of worry about. So the fourth layer is just deciding to shoot or to drive. So as you guys can see, we're starting to expand the amount of decisions that you guys are going to make, which is making it more realistic. In an actual game, there's a million different decisions to make. As you guys can see, we're working up the ladder where it's on-air shooting. There's no defense, there's no game elements whatsoever. And then we're moving up to contested shooting where you have that pressure, still no decisions. Then we're going jump shot only one-on-one where you're having to decide, okay, I know I'm gonna shoot, but I don't know exactly how I'm gonna get into that shot. So we're limiting the decisions to a degree to make it a little bit easier, focus on certain decisions. But again, we want to continue to broaden it. So now that next level is just deciding, okay, am I gonna shoot or am I going to actually drive it? So you have to work on reading that defender where you're working on, maybe it's one-on-one closeouts. You have to read, okay, is he really closing out where I then have to drive it and I can get all the way to the rim, or is he kind of on his heels a little bit and then I'm gonna have to shoot? So again, slowly broadening those decisions. If we're only training on air, we're getting very limited decision making, very limited game qualities that we're not going to really be able to transfer over into the game. So we want to be getting a little bit of everything. And then the final level, which is the highest level of shooting work that you can get, which isn't always realistic, but again, if you guys can get it, that's great, is working on shooting with shoot, drive, or pass, right? Because in a game, you're not just going to shoot or drive. You also have to work on driving it, and then maybe you pass, or maybe you catch, maybe you skip. So when we can train that as well, that's where you're going to get the highest quality shooting work, where you're getting the most amount of decisions, most amount of game elements, which is again going to transfer over. Now again, it's not always realistic. I would say working on that where you're doing small sided games, it's 3-on-3 with shooting focused, or it's 2-on-2. That only may be 10% of your training. And then again, you can do a ton of one-on-one stuff where you're working on catch and shoot, or maybe I'm gonna drive. That can be 25% of your training with a partner. Then another 25% is where you have to catch, you know you're gonna shoot, it's one-on-one. Then another 25% is contested shooting, and then maybe 20% of that can be on air. So again, you want to make sure you're getting all of these. Most of you guys are only getting one, you're only getting on air. That's why your shooting doesn't work. If you want to become the best shooter, you have to be getting a little bit of all of these and constantly moving up and down the ladder, constantly be challenging yourself and know exactly which areas of this you need the most work. For some of you, your accuracy, your shooting, your form is there. You don't need more of that. You need more decisions, making sure you're taking the right shot. Because again, if you're shooting in games, you're constantly taking the wrong shot, constantly making wrong decisions. A, you're probably not going to play that much. B, you're only going to make your job as a shooter more difficult. So when you can do all of these things, make the right decisions, be at the right spot, make the right pass, make the right play, you're going to make your life a lot easier and become a better shooter. So this is how you train shooting to become the highest level shooter and actually get results in games.